tabernas in Almeria, so often a film backdrop for the Wild West. But the environmental data is no fiction. 32 million Spaniards are affected by global warming, 70% of the population. CRISTINA is a tour guide here. She warns visitors of the risk that this desert of 300 kilometers expands.
You realize that 250 millimeters of water a year is very little. Imagine it rained even less.
In Spain, the summer is lasting 5 weeks longer than in the 1980s, and temperatures keep getting higher.
Bit by bit, we're seeing how the regions of Almeria, Murcia, and Alicante are becoming drier and drier. All the green areas are disappearing. By the end of the century, 3/4 of the peninsula will have the same climate as this desert, and that's also to do with humans.
The Environment Ministry says if nothing is done, 3 million hectares of wet areas will become arid by the end of the century.
It gives me goosebumps. We hear it all the time on the television, and we're well aware that we're next, or that it's already happening here.
Desertification is when dry or relatively dry land becomes a desert. Human activity exacerbates the effect of climate change. But the phenomenon isn't always visible to the naked eye. In Almeria, the green landscape is deceptive.
The vegetation has remained the same for decades. It's never been capable of progressing. These pine trees around us were replanted, but their growth has been very limited.
The soil degenerated due to lead mining, the region's main source of wealth in the 19th century. Nature paid the price of industrialization. This is the last oak tree in the whole area, a sad survivor of deforestation.
They've cut down all the trees in the Gador mountain range. The soil has eroded as a result. The trees weren't capable of recolonizing their territory, and that's why we've got a landscape that has been irreversibly degraded. The desertification took place because at one moment or another humans have overexploited natural resources like water beyond nature's capacity to regenerate.
Southern Spain, particularly hit by dry weather, is a huge producer of fruit and vegetables requiring water. But these plastic greenhouses are the economy's motor. Local solutions are being explored to halt desertification, like removing the salt from seawater.
We're 3 kilometers from the sea here.
The Spanish government wants to double the production of desalinated water by next year.
Under my feet, you can see water flowing. Sometimes you even see fish. The filtered water arrives at the deposit where it gets pumped and then sent through a series of tubes to be desalinized.
180,000 cubic meters of drinking water are produced here every day, 2,000 liters per second.
Before this factory was built, this kind of water was underexploited. Now good quality is available and we've recovered some of the underwater reservoirs.
At the end of the circuit, 3% of the water ends up as tap water. 87% goes to irrigate the region's farmlands. Because in Almeria, it rains very little, just 228 millimeters a year. Some farmers have begun to try more sustainable methods they call renewed farming.
It means we just need to do common sense farming. Common sense tells you need to use all possible resources to make the most of the soil and the landscape that we have.
SANTIAGA Sanchez is using the same techniques that were used 100 years ago, helping the soil to receive the less and less frequent rain.
Since the soil's been mulched and hasn't been ploughed, that helps the water to be absorbed. It's like a giant sponge waiting for the water to trickle through.
Unlike much of the farmland in the region, her land hasn't degenerated over time because she plants a variety of crops. For the last 20 years, 56 hectares of almond trees, 7 kilometers of aromatic plants, 70 hectares of cereals and fallow lands are only watered by rainwater.
Imagine that only almond trees were planted here and nothing else. Well, I would lose layers of fertile lands every year, and microbiology would have nowhere to take shelter. In other words, the little insects that feed the earth.
Santiago also has a secret weapon. 250 goats, 1,000 sheep. They provide natural manure and feed a virtuous ecosystem.
Life supports life. Without these animals, it wouldn't be the same. I would lose a lot of flowers and plants that, thanks to these animals, survive and coexist.
Maintaining and fertilising the soil, improving the use of water. The battle is on to prevent lands turning to desert. But reforestation is also badly needed. A challenge for the authorities and for Spanish citizens who want to stop the increasing destruction of biodiversity.